Donald Trump himself just gave the most unhinged performance perhaps that's ever taken place in a courtroom. Donald Trump delivered an unhinged closing argument. I don't even know what to refer to it as. It was a stream of consciousness of Donald Trump spewing nonsense, attacking the judge, attacking the New York Attorney General. This was in the New York Attorney General's civil fraud case, an 11-week trial, 44 days. Today was closing arguments. Donald Trump's lawyers had previously requested that the judge allow Donald Trump to participate in the summation, in the closing argument. They said Donald Trump wanted to speak. Judge Engoron had previously said, the judge presiding over the case, that he was okay with Donald Trump giving a closing argument if Donald Trump followed the same rules that apply to the other lawyers, that apply to any litigant in a courtroom. And Donald Trump's lawyers said that would be unfair and Donald Trump deserved some special treatment. And Judge Engoron said, well, I'm not going to allow that. So going into the closing arguments today, we were not expecting Donald Trump to give a closing argument, but that didn't stop him. So first up, Christopher Kise, Donald Trump's defense lawyer, gave part of the closing argument, then Alina Habba, then Cliff Roberts, and then Chris Kise asked the judge if Donald Trump could give a speech. Chris Roberts had given the last part of the closing, and then Judge Engoron had said, look, I'll let Donald Trump speak if he agrees to the rules and he'll comply and conduct himself like anyone else in this courtroom. And before Donald Trump even said anything, Donald Trump just went right into his rant, did not agree to comport himself with the court rules. And here's what Donald Trump said. So again, Engoron said, do you promise that you're just going to comment on the facts and the law the same way that all other lawyers and litigants conduct themselves? Donald Trump ignored it, and Donald Trump went right in, and he said, quote, this was a political witch hunt. We should receive damages for what they have taken our company through, referring to the New York Attorney General. They have no documents. They have nothing. And then Trump says, well, they may have the triplex, but that was a mistake, referring to the fact that Donald Trump inflated the value of his triplex by saying it was 30,000 square feet when it was 10,000 square feet. Then Trump goes, I'm not sure the dollar amount would have been that far off if you want to know, referring to the triplex. I'm an innocent man. I have been politically persecuted. This statute is vicious, referring to the New York law that allows fraudulent businesses to be shut down and pay damages for their persistent and systemic fraud. Trump went on to say, what happened here is fraud on me. The amount of taxes I have paid over this period is close to $300 million. They don't want me here anymore. I have a problem. They want to make sure I don't run again. And then Trump continued, and by the way, hat tip to Lisa Rubin here, who was in the courtroom getting a lot of this transcribed. Trump kept on going on without any interjection from Justice Engoron or even New York Attorney General's team. Then he started attacking New York Attorney General Letitia James, accusing her of election interference, looked at her and said, you have your own agenda. And then Donald Trump turns to the judge and says, you can't listen for more than 1 minute, and starts attacking the judge personally, ad hominem attacks. Then the judge goes to Donald Trump's lawyer, Mr. Kise, control your client. Control your client, Mr. Kise. Then Trump continues and then keeps on attacking New York Attorney General Letitia James, says that she's going after him for political gain, and said that she had a failed run for governor of New York. And then Judge Engoron shut the whole thing down and said, enough, this is over. We are not letting this go on. This is against all of the court rules. This is not what a closing argument is supposed to be. And then Donald Trump basically just storms out of the courtroom and then starts spewing a bunch of nonsense. More on that in just a moment. Before Donald Trump did that, Alina Habba's argument was almost equally as unhinged. Habba argued, quote, "We're just human beings. We're just human beings. And Donald Trump did his best. Anything that he did wrong was just human error. It was just a mistake that he made." That was Alina Habba's argument about why Donald Trump had these fraudulent valuations. She continued to say things like, this was from Alina Habba's closing, "Explain to me, if you're trying to commit fraud, why would you put it in a writing to a real estate agent? Excuse me, can you tell me how big the apartment is?" And so Alina Habba was arguing that because Donald Trump wrote the fraudulent numbers, or because they were typed and they were on pieces of paper, that you can't engage in fraud if you put it on paper. If you transmit a fraudulent document to someone who puts fraudulent financials on paper. What's interesting too is Donald Trump's other arguments in other cases is if he speaks the words, then he has a First Amendment right to do it. So it's not a crime if he speaks it, because he goes First Amendment. And this argument is like a corollary of Donald Trump's absurd and baseless arguments. Who writes down the fraud? Who keeps separate sets of books? One to inflate your valuations and one to deflate your valuations if you want to pay less property taxes, and the other if you want to pull more money out of banks to get more money. Who does that? I don't know. Criminals all the time. People who engage in fraud do that. Donald Trump did that so that he could defraud people by showing them phony financials. That's kind of what fraud is, but that's illegal. That's Alina Habba's argument. Explain to me, if you're trying to commit fraud, why you would put it in writing to a real estate agent. Excuse me, can you tell me how big this apartment is? And she goes, "We're human beings. He did his best. All that happened was human error here." Habba goes on to argue that it doesn't make sense to hire a heavyweight accounting firm like Meiselas if you're going to commit fraud. They go, "The Trump organization hired Meiselas. Why would you hire a big accounting company if you were going to commit fraud?" I mean, by the way, Meiselas has all of the disclaimer language saying that they rely on the financials of the company. But, you think about Enron, you think about fraud all the time. They're represented by big financial accounting firms. That's kind of something that happens a lot. But Alina Habba makes a big deal about that. And then Alina Habba, this is as Adam Classfield describes it, her summation has been laced with heavy sarcasm and grand dismissive gestures. And then she goes, a quote, when she talks about the fraud, she goes, "He only committed some fraud? What a fraudster that makes him." So, and then Alina Habba goes to the judge, "You're now being dragged through a political agenda of the New York attorney." And Judge Engoron shut that down and said, "Closing arguments are limited to the facts and evidence. You can talk about the facts and the evidence. It's not for you, Alina Habba, to rant and rave and demean people and attack people personally. You do that when you go on Fox. You do that when you give your political speeches. We are in a court of law." Donald Trump's other lawyer, Cliff Roberts, in his remarks, he said, this case is a press release wrapped up in a lawsuit. And then he goes on to attack Michael Cohen and said, "Michael Cohen is a loser with a capital L," and says he didn't have the chutzpah to accuse Eric and Don Jr. of any wrongdoing. And he finished up by saying, "The law is not stupid. The Attorney General holds that we are, but the law is not stupid." So that's what took place today in court. Again, Judge Engoron had previously said that he would allow Donald Trump to give a closing argument if Trump followed the rules. Donald Trump's lawyer then said he wouldn't follow the rules. So Judge Engoron said, "Well, then I won't let him give a closing argument if you're not going to follow the rules that everybody in a court everywhere across the country has to follow." And then Donald Trump spoke anyway, attacked the judge, but he said his piece. And made himself look like an utter fool, and then stormed out like the petulant third grader that he is. No offense to third graders. And then, here's what he said. He then accuses New York Attorney General Letitia James of being the reason why Exxon fled New York. It's one of Donald Trump's arguments. Exxon left New York in 1989, over 34, 35 years ago. Exxon left. But Donald Trump said that's New York Attorney General Letitia James' fault. Here, play this clip.
This is a disgraceful situation. This is why businesses are fleeing New York, like Exxon. Millions and millions of dollars a year in taxes, and I paid millions and millions of dollars a year. We paid approximately $300 million over a fairly short period of time, and they don't want me to pay it anymore. This is a very serious problem because companies are fleeing New York. They want to focus on the crime, violent crime in the city. One of the reasons they're fleeing. The other reason they flee is because of attorney generals like this that just want to get elected. Thank you very much. It's been a very successful trial. I don't know that we're going to get a fair ruling, but everybody knows what I just said. This is a sham, and it's a shame. Thank you.
Are you talking today at the press conference? Are you going to talk to the press?
And there you have it, folks. That's what went down in court today. We'll keep you posted as we learn more, but definitely an interesting day, but you just see how kind of, again, unhinged this individual is. I mean, unhinged and whiny and all very disqualifying in my mind. Hit subscribe. We're on our way to 2 million subscribers thanks to your support. Check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Thanks for watching.
Hey Midas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram at MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.